Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good topic? Let's do it. What was the most "thank God it was just a dream" moment you had after waking up? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I've been clean from heroin for about 18 months now. The first couple of weeks were agonizing. Physical withdrawals are coupled with crippling insomnia. I wanted to die. Fast forward to about the 30-day mark. I finally slept 6 hours or so a night, and my dreams had returned. Of course, one of the first dreams I had is of me copping dope, sitting in my car about to push the needle in and waking up, dripping sweat, panicking and hyperventilating. It took me a few minutes to gather myself and realize I hadn't effed up, relapsed, and was only dreaming. This would happen a few times a week. Now it doesn't even cross my mind anymore. I have a sort of weird relationship with sleep, in that I'm not great at going from, oh, I'm having a dream, to this is really happening. This leads to a lot of sleep talking and sleep moving. I constantly wake up people I share a bed with because I'm convinced the bed is full of broken glass, cockroaches, or little white mice, so I need them to absolutely not move while I deal with the problem. But I also can't always be sure that what I've had a dream about isn't real. When I was about 9, I had a dream that, for some reason or other, I was the only person in the world who knew that the planet Jupiter was going to collide with Earth and kill us all. That was it. There's no way to deflect it. Nothing. Jupiter was coming, and we were effed. I spent about an hour huddled up in my blankets, staring at the wall in this half-light of early morning, thinking, how the hell am I going to convince everyone that the world is going to get destroyed? I'm just a kid. No one's ever going to believe me. But knowing that the fate of the entire world was on my shoulders, I started coming up with my plans. Maybe the Prime Minister had like a rocket or something, or some sort of space shield. There had to be a space shield. That sounded like something that would probably exist. Then it slowly dawned on me that A, I lived in the middle of nowhere in the UK, which isn't exactly known for being a hub of space discoveries. B, there's no way I would have known that, given that I didn't even own the most beginner-level telescope. And C, it was kind of dumb anyway. I waited an hour or so for my parents to wake up, and then I asked my mom if I'd mentioned anything, sort of spacious recently. She told me to stop being silly and asked me what I wanted for breakfast. But yeah, for a couple of hours, I legit thought I was going to have to save the planet, and it was terrifying. I've always heard that when you die in a dream, you wake up. A couple of times I haven't woken up. The first one was the most elaborate. I had apparently been accused of some stupid crime like petty theft and sentenced to death. We had planned to appeal the sentence, but the deadline crept up on us and it was too late. I was brought to a church-like building and had to walk down the center aisle and kneel on a red velvet pillow. Someone came in with a katana to chop my head off, but I don't remember that actually happening. All of a sudden, it's the day after the scheduled execution, and I'm just sitting in my parents' living room staring out the window. I vaguely remember that I should be dead now, and wonder if the execution was just a dream. Then my mother appears at the top of the stairs that led into the living room. She looks terribly sad. I call out to her, but she doesn't respond. My dad appears at another doorway, and he also looks sad. He won't respond to me either. At that moment, I realize that I am dead after all, and just hanging around my parents' house as a ghost. I scream at them, trying to get them to know I'm here, but it's useless. I got really depressed and started thinking about all the things I would never get to do in life. Have a job, this was back in high school, go to college, get married, and have kids. I woke up in the middle of the spiral of negative thoughts. The other death dream was a little less depressing. I was sitting around with a bunch of other people when we all suddenly got the same telepathic message. Apparently, aliens had invaded the Earth and decided to end all human life. There was a countdown from 30, at the end of which we were told we'd die. I didn't feel any pain, but as the countdown reached its end, I suddenly couldn't open my eyes. I struggled to open them, but it was useless. Again, there was a sudden jump to the next scene. I was in a dark room about the size of a large conference room. The walls were beautiful wood paneling, and the ceiling looked like the night sky full of stars. I was standing along the wall, and several other people were there with me, talking quietly amongst themselves. I remember thinking, if this is the afterlife, this isn't so bad. This is a world with things I can recognize, wood, stars, and other people. I was still very sad about never seeing my friends or family again, but the overwhelming feeling was a sense of relief. I was actually a little sad to wake up from that dream. It's pretty wild. It's like you lived two separate lives and had pretty major experiences. I've had some vivid dreams, but from what I read today, nothing like that, and I'd be glad I haven't. Generally, I don't really get scared in my dreams. When I wake up from a nightmare that is very intense and involves me being chased or having to fight, it doesn't usually faze me. However, I had a dream that our town was being invaded by aircraft. They blew up the mall beside my house, and I turned to my wife in bed and said, "Oh my god, that's the mall." I proceeded to get up and start putting clothes on, and I was screaming at my wife to get up with me as she was just frozen. Then I woke up in my own bed, and I looked out at the foot of my bed, and my daughter was there. She was in pajamas, and all she said was, "Help." She said really quietly, and her nose started gushing blood. Then I actually woke up and woke up my wife and told her that I was not going back to sleep that night. It haunted me for days. Earlier in the year, I started seeing a psychiatrist who told me that I was sleep deprived to the point of dementia and prescribed me trazodone along with my other medications to help me sleep. I had to fiddle with the dosage, but I wasn't ready for the super vivid detailed dreams it can cause. I've always had vivid dreams, but holy shit, this stuff is on a whole nother level. So, one night, I take my pills and head to bed. Now, I had been kind of seeing this girl that lived near me, but we had a bit of a falling out the week prior. I was adjusting to my meds and having a hard time. So that night, I'm dreaming I'm over at her parents' house, and everyone is freaking out and crying and upset. Apparently S, we'll call her, had died. I woke up crying, stupendously confused, and legitimately upset. In the morning, around 2 in the morning, trying to figure out what the F was going on. I was barely able to sleep because I was so unsure if it was a dream or reality, and I was actually upset as if she had actually died. It may sound stupid, but it really terrifies me. I was shopping like a normal person. Suddenly, people had disappeared, and all the stores had closed. It was so weird. So I started looking for a way out. There were no exits. There are no ways out at all. This scared me so much that I started to run to get the F out, even though I knew I had no way. It looked like I was running in circles. That feeling of panic and being trapped, it was so tiring. I woke up with my heart in my mouth. I had the most vivid dream of myself and other friends all at a party. One of my very tiny male friends liked to get drunk and try to fight people. None of us really give in, we just laugh, but in this dream, he was all over me, and I said, "Alright, let's fight." And the first punch I threw connected with his head, and it exploded like a watermelon. I was sitting on the floor holding his head saying, "Damn, we were just messing around, now I'm going to jail." And then I woke up in a sweat and had to double check and make sure I didn't actually make my friend's head explode. A while back I had this nightmare where I was being stalked by this horrific beast. It was relentless. I just could not get away from it. God, I was so stressed out because I just knew the moment this thing caught up with me, I'd be dead. I kept running and running, trying to get away from this thing, and yet it just kept getting closer and closer, and my heart was beating faster and faster. This is it, I thought. I'm about to die. So I did the only thing I could do, pray. I prayed that this was just a bad experience and that everything would be okay. I couldn't run anymore. I was cornered. And just as the beast caught up to me and pounced, everything froze. And just like that, I woke up in an instant. I have never been so thankful to sleep my floorboard in my life. I can't recall what I did, but for some reason I was in a courtroom and the judge was about to determine whether I was guilty or not guilty. I was found guilty and sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. It seemed so real. They handcuffed me, took me to the back, and walked me down a cream-painted brick hallway. They put me in a little cell and shut the door. I remember crying, having a panic attack, banging my head on the door, etc., and then I woke up. It sounds like a super boring story, but it felt so real when I woke up. I was jumping up and down about the fact that it was just a dream. Bear with me on this one. I woke up one morning freaking out because in my dream I had accidentally lost or killed my friend's hedgehog, and I don't have even any friends with hedgehogs, down the drain of a bathtub. I'm not sure why I was in a tub with a hedgehog, but I tried to use it on its back as a drain cover, and it didn't work. The water was low enough to not drown it, but that didn't matter. It was like the video of the hedgehog sliding into the glass vase, but he just got sucked through. I woke up in terror. It was as close to the feeling of waking up from a nightmare as I've had in a long time. This is kind of long, but it was one of the most vivid and terrifying dreams I've ever had. It happened when I stopped smoking weed after years of daily use. Apparently, vivid dreams are a common side effect of quitting abruptly after heavy use. It started off with me walking in some random suburban neighborhood at night. I started hearing noises like a riot and people wailing in the streets. I saw a gang of people brutally murder someone down the street. They couldn't have been more than 300 feet away. Since this was a dream, I somehow knew I was in the middle of a purge, like in the movie. I started panicking and broke into the nearest house. I was greeted with the flustered mother of a newborn. She said she was scared and needed to protect her baby at all costs. We decided it's best to hide in her room and remain as quiet as possible. I'm freaking the F out and decide to look out the window to make sure the coast was clear. It's just my unfortunate luck that I noticed a gang of masked men headed toward the house. For some reason, I felt a sense of bravery and heroism and decided to take on the gang. I needed to protect the mother and her baby. Once I actually confronted the gang, they gave me an ultimatum. I can either join them and kill or be killed. I don't know what's gone over me, but I decide to join them. I enter the mother's house with the gang. What I found was something so grim and bizarre that I'd never seen it coming. The mother brutally murdered her baby and was performing some satanic ritual in her room. I'm horrified and end up killing the mother with a bat that just magically appeared. I couldn't stand to be in that house another second and rush back to the streets. Immediately after leaving the house, I see several patrol cars and they pull up to me. They get out and arrest me, accusing me of killing the mother and her newborn. None of this was making any sense, as with most dreams. This is where things get really wonky. As I'm about to get handcuffed, the officer stalls and tells me I'm involuntarily part of a major motion picture, and everything that happened was a simulation. Everyone from the dream gathered around me to shake my hand and comfort me. I wake up immediately after I introduce myself to the cast. I got out of bed with a sense of relief, but was left in an uneasy mood that resonated for the rest of the day. I had two equally bonkers dreams the following days, and it hasn't happened since. The thing that made it so terrifying was how vivid and how well I could remember the dream. I tend to have what I call adventure dreams, where the entire world changes to something else and I'm frequently an entirely different person. They're rare, but usually fantastic. Usually. I dreamt that a malevolent god of flesh had risen in the center of the city where I lived, and in the moment of its foul birth it emitted a global, undeniable mind control signal that turned everyone on Earth into a slavish cult, except me. I was broken. My mind was sufficiently different from those of the rest of the world that I was not affected by the signal, although I could still hear it every moment of every day. Civilization had broken down, with humanity content to eat and sleep just enough to keep alive so they could worship and serve this hideous deity. As this new god was strengthened and grown by blood, meat, and sacrifice, people would throw themselves or others into the blood pool at the base of a blasphemous form to await consumption. This would be my fate if anyone figured out that I was there, and that I wasn't the same ravaging adherent they were. I was holed up in an apartment. It wasn't mine, but it might as well have been. The window shades were drawn against the figure of the thing lurking on the horizon. As to look at it hurt my eyes and brain. I would have been safe enough there. No one was going door to door hunting for dissidents and sacrifices, except I still needed to eat and drink, and so I still needed to venture out into the world now and again. Worse, the same signal that droned away at the back of my mind would still be present as I slept and would inevitably steal my mind without constant vigilance. The only way to blot it out was to get extremely drunk. I was forced to do this each and every night, as sleep would lower my defenses just enough that I would wake up as a slave to the god's wretched demands. More than any other dream, this one had a horrible sense of time about it. It felt like it lasted months. During that time, I watched the new god grow taller and fatter on the corpses of my species, even while my own living conditions deteriorated under that awful pressure of my existence. Every time I needed food or alcohol, I had to leave my safe haven and range further and further afield, and the only way of doing this was to paste on the mind-scoured, blood-hungry smile of one of the cultists and pray I didn't say or do the wrong thing. Every day was confinement and loneliness, ending in blackout drunkenness I had long since stopped enjoying. The ceaseless march of days was pierced with moments of a knife's edge terror as I was forced to witness, condone, and participate in acts of brutality during my few scavenging hours. All the while, the days and nights were defined by the constant droning cicada scream of the god's mental signal, a weaving one-note requiem for humanity that constantly battered against the fortress of my broken brain. Day in, day out, that horrible signal was blotted, and only by a few hours of drunken stupor, I woke up with a headache, reading Lovecraft. It's okay. Experiencing a dream quest on a blood-drunk earth is uniquely harrowing.